Welcome to one more edition of Politics Done Right. I'm Egberto Willis, your host. Today we are honored to have Marilyn M. Singleton. She is a board-certified anesthesiologist. She is past president of the Association of American Physicians and Surgeons. She graduated from Stanford and earned her MD at UCSF Medical School. Dr. Singleton completed 2 years of surgery residency at UCSF, then her anesthesia residency at Harvard's Beth Israel Hospital. She interned at the National Health Law Project and practiced insurance and health law. She is the author of a recent article that got my attention titled "The Fox Garden, the Herpetarium." Hi, Marilyn Singleton, MD, JD. Why the JD? But anyhow, welcome to Politics Done Right, Marilyn. How are you doing today?
I'm just fine, and you?
I am doing just fine. First of all, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hey, just a native Californian who had parents that always wanted me to strive for the best, and that's what I tried to do. And I've been interested in healthcare since I was in high school, and couldn't decide whether to do it in law or medicine. So I ultimately did both.
Well, that's good. That's good. Anyhow, you wrote the letter, the I should say an op-ed, Fox Garden, the Herpetarium. Explain.
Well, it just struck me after that poor congressman was bitten by a rabid fox, but it got me just thinking about the fox guarding the hen house, but our legislators somehow just seem to be more reptilian than cute little hens looking out for us.
For several different reasons, I must agree with you on that fact, because I don't know how many of them are really out there for us and not for themselves or their benefactors. I have no idea. But I want to see where there's some symbiosis here. First of all, tell me, again, you wrote that article, and I love the title. I was like, wow. And then I love the way you brought it in. Hey, the guy got hit by the fox here in the middle of Washington, D.C. and the mall. Wow. And then you started to make a detour. Tell me a little bit about what your article said.
Well, what I was talking about is, being a native Californian, I was sort of stunned at the number of bills that came out of the California legislature that just seemed too far over the edge. And whether you're right or left, we're human beings, and some of these laws just didn't seem to hit on our humanity, but rather seemed to hit, I don't know, for the lowest common denominator. And I just don't think that's who we are. And I kind of started off with some of the laws regarding abortion and the idea that you would make our state a place where you would encourage people and have commissions. How can we get more abortions? And I thought, even Hillary Clinton said they were supposed to be safe and rare. And so then you have people saying, come on down, like it's a game show, and it just seemed wrong.
Okay, and that's what given that you're an MD, you're from California, and you are also into law, what struck me, I just want to get a perspective here. Where do you stand on women's reproductive rights in general?
Well, in general, I have to say, personally, I am pro-life. I've seen a whole spectrum of women who are in very difficult situations. And so I don't take the issue lightly. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what was so bothersome, that the seriousness of the issue of what to do with the pregnancy under an array of circumstances, whether you be a teenager, raped, incest, health problems. Certainly for health problems, the mother's life tends to be saved, even though in the Catholic Church, they say the baby's life should be saved. So that's, a whole nother position. Mm-hmm. But So it can be a complex issue. And I guess that is what strikes me. The issue doesn't seem to be taken with the seriousness that it is, that you're encouraging people almost to not think about it. If you say, we're going to make a law that gives free rides, free abortions, free everything, and it doesn't seem to include any other kind of counseling. Did you get counseling regarding adoption? Did you get counseling regarding some of the psychological issues that might arise from a hasty abortion? So it just seemed to be a bit cavalier to me.
Do you think that it may seem cavalier maybe because you are in fact pro-life, or do you think it was written in a cavalier fashion? Because I have a follow-up to that, but I'd like that answer first.
Well, I have to say, I was trying to look at it from a lens of just, why would a state do this? And then say, well, because some other states may outlaw abortion, so people would need a place to come. But I was looking at it, people will find out. You don't have to make it was almost a celebration. And I think that was what stuck with me. So honestly, I think it's difficult to separate personal feelings a lot of times, but I did try.
No, let me,
in looking at it as not just your basic law, but it just appeared more of a celebration of abortion.
Normally I wouldn't even have entertained bringing somebody that I considered to the right if I didn't think it was a rational thinking person that was going from a position of not just a flamethrower, but somebody who genuinely have an interest. And I think that's the kind of conversations we're supposed to have in this country, and I think it's what would make things better. I want to postulate something with you based on those laws that you just told me. You said while we were speaking that as you saw the law written, you didn't see any advice on possibly adoptions. You didn't see any advice about all these other issues. And you also said that to you, what you saw within the law was, well, free everything, come on in, come on out, etc. Would you look on the other side and say the law was written as wide as possible, leaving it up to the individual's religion, family ties, medical advice on their own? In other words, the state just making the option available to absolutely everyone, but not telling everyone what they had to do, must do, should do. And isn't that really the way laws are supposed to be written?
Not well. I wouldn't say necessarily that's the way laws are supposed to be written. I just didn't see the necessity for the law at all. If people want to go to a state that has absolutely no abortion restrictions, they can certainly find that out. All they have to do is go to Planned Parenthood's website. I just don't think a state needs to make it the law that we will pay for people to come from the outside. And I look at that from two angles. It's like when people would come to California to get higher Medicaid benefits because people were doing that. And it even was a Supreme Court case. Can you cross state lines and go to another state? Should there be a residency requirement? So a lot of it too, I'm looking at as state resources. Now you might say, oh, it's probably only a handful of people. I don't know how many people it would be. And, obviously it's not going to be millions, but our resources should be spent on Californians, not people who come in from other states.
That's actually, I can see that being, the part of the bill that everyone could object to, not whether you're pro-life, pro-life, pro whatever. I could see an objection there, right? Because you could say California taxpayers' resources should be used for Californians. Now, a lot of states, including Texas, for ideological reasons, they would have their states support others in other states to make a point. And I think, I think you are actually right about that with regards to California making the laws in that sort that says, hey, over here, while Texas is doing all those draconian things in Texas, know that there's a California that is there to support you. And who knows, maybe you'll come and become a Californian and become a productive California citizen. So I mean, there are different ways of looking at that as being and bringing other people into California, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I don't see that the law is a law that's encouraging a free for all. I know that maybe that's how you see it, but I don't know that I necessarily see it that way. What would you want to be done about that?
What do you mean?
Well, I mean, you wrote a strong article that pretty much went completely against what they're doing in California. And like I said, I can see that it was written from a position from your position, but I can also see it from a position that says we want to make sure that we are open to all, and not only to all, but for those people where they believe the state's doing a wrong too. I have a follow-up on that.
Well, I would just say you don't really need a law. And what I would say is tell the legislatures to vote it down. What we do have, and we have a governor, we have a very verbal governor. If he wants to make a policy statement about how he feels about his state, and then his state is welcoming, whatever kind of statement he wants to make the statement, send it out there, let people know, hey, everyone is welcome in California, however he wants to put this, and say what his beliefs are and what he thinks the majority of Californians feel, something of that nature. But I don't think it needs to be a law.
Well, look, all right, let's go now into the mechanics of let's say abortion. I don't talk this a whole lot because first of all, I'm a man. And secondly, because rarely do you get somebody that is willing to have an intellectually based conversation on the issue. And reading your article led me to believe that you were. Right now, you are a pro-lifer, and I like to say pro-no-choicer, but it's okay. But you're pro-lifer. I am a pro-lifer myself, right? I believe in giving people good health care. I believe in giving people food when they need it. I believe in all these particular issues, right? So I think I'm pro-life, but I'm also cognizant that in America, women many times have been relegated to second-class citizenship, and that motherhood is actually as well something that has held back women a lot of times, and that mistakes can be made. And I don't know how, and you can help me here, I don't know how many people who consider themselves to be pro-life when it comes to a fetus, a blastoma, or whatever, when it comes to the type of support that is necessary for the born, is not necessarily there. I'm not speaking about you specifically. I'm talking to you as being a pro-lifer.
Well, it's interesting you put it that way. And as far as life, and we could get into the deep science of when life really begins and
which I don't know
more important, and all this, very, very deep subject. Some places are very good about adoption services, giving financial help to people who need it, and other places aren't. And I grant you that. And it's something I've always said, that if you don't have a full range of choices when you use that word, and have some sort of support for people who find themselves in a position that no one wants to be in, they've got to have that full range, and that's not necessarily offered. There's got to be you have to make sure that if a person does go through and have the baby, that OB care will be paid for, and just like you're going to say, I'll pay for the abortion, say, I'll pay for the obstetrical care, whether the person, they may be on Medicaid in California, Medi-Cal, or some other program. We don't know their family situation, so you have to make sure there's family support. There might be issues with an abusive husband. It's such a huge issue, and I think people don't want to address the edges, and that's part of the problem. That's why I'm so glad to talk to you, because you see it's a bigger problem than just yes, no, gonna have this baby, I'm not gonna have this baby. That it's a huge undertaking to have a child. There are people who want children. There's people who even take disabled children, which God bless them. So I think that's where all sides are lacking, is giving the proper support to women who find themselves in this position.
Ironically, doctor, what you find is the states that are so much more restrictive on a woman's rights to whatever she wants to do with her body are the states that are deficient in exactly what you've just mentioned.
Well, I don't know if that's 100% true, because
no, it's not 100% true at all. It's not. But what I'm saying is, if we talk about Mississippi, Arkansas, Kentucky, all these particular states, Texas is a bit better because Texas is a very big state and has a lot of independent people, a lot of independent organizations that are there to pretty much make a point, right? But I think you can infer based on the medical care. I mean, California has great medical care. Texas has lousy medical care, and Mississippi has worse. So, I mean, you're a lot of your intuition from a very good state, from a state where people get their most of their needs met. It's not the same as, let's say, from Kentucky, Arkansas, Mississippi, Louisiana, and these other places. So, I mean, I hear you, right? And I think you make some valid points, and you have a right to the belief of, when life begins and what you want. And I guess I need to ask one question, doctor. You don't support getting rid of a woman's right to choose abortion, right?
When you put it that way, on a federal level, I honestly do believe that as a legal basis, Roe versus Wade was wrongly decided. The legal basis for it was somewhat bizarre, but
let's forget. I mean, I know you're a lawyer now as well, but let's forget about legalities. Let's talk about humanity. Do you believe that that a woman in California should have other rights than a woman in Texas?
Well, it's hard not to bring the law in when you put it that way, because we are a republic of multiple states, and
Which I think
that was one of the reasons for each state being
which I
able to have
think
the laws that they want.
It's funny because in 2020, I mean, in 2022, it is rather silly, right? Especially with the mobility that we have today.
Well, but
I think
but it makes it all the better, because we do have mobility. That if you want to go to another state, I remember the day, and believe me, I've been around a long time.
Well, you don't look that way.
A long time before Roe versus Wade, when I was in medicine, and people would go to Mexico, rich people would go to Japan, people would travel places to get an abortion. And
I'm sorry to interrupt, because I want you to segue on that exact notion. You just said those people who could afford it, which means we relegated the poor and the generically poor into whatever their state's desires, right?
Well, I'm not denying that there's some level where if you can afford it, like with so many other things, then yes, you can get whatever you want.
And henceforth,
just Alice's restaurant, you can get whatever you want.
And henceforth the benevolence of California, right? Because
but
California is saying,
but that's not California's job. And I think, and certainly this is something that organizations like Planned Parenthood and various other organizations, if they want these folks to go ahead and get an abortion, then they can help pay for it. I don't think it's California's duty to
okay,
pay for abortions from across the country.
granted, now
That's,
that I agree, that you have the right to have that feeling. There's a lot of things that other states do as well that it's not for the benefit of those states only. But you know, I could imagine if I were a lawyer in California, I could say, well, this is a marketing campaign to say this is the reason why you want to be in California and not Texas. Right. So, I mean, there are a lot of things that that could be used for or defined as. I mean, you could say it's not California's duty for something, and California could come back and say, well, what we're trying to do is let everybody around the country know that California is a hospitable state and we want people to come. And that's one of the ways we
well,
get
it
them to
has
come.
nice beaches, so it can be hospitable for that.
Actually, I think California is beautiful. I like Texas. I'm here in Texas, and I love
Oh,
I love my Texas. I don't live within its restrictions, but here's it. First of all, I want to thank you for coming on. I have a couple more questions, but I want to clarify one thing. I am listening to you, doctor, and you are not as harsh on abortion. I think, however, I see that you would love to see Roe versus Wade go. Okay. And for me, it does not compute with your own morality. I am listening to you. Okay. And that you are okay with Roe versus Wade going away. And after listening to all the pros and cons that you've given to me, tells me you're a moral person. But at the same time, you're allowing ideology to have you say you are willing to have women in different states. And I think we've come back and said, hey, but a woman in Mississippi who is poor, she has no mobility and to do what's right for her own personal economy. So I think if I understand you correctly, you're of two minds, an ideology fighting a morality.
well, I suppose you can look at it. I mean, when you bring in the money issue into the whole thing, sadly, money talks for a lot of things.
Thank you.
And, we already know that. And we can go all the way back to forced sterilizations and Mississippi appendectomy.
Remember that, yeah.
All these things that were done on poor people. So there's no question that if you don't have money, that you don't have the same options as
Right.
someone who does. So, we can take that all the way back and get more to the core. What do we do in general to, how they say, level the playing field for people for things that one could consider essential to their health, whether it's mental or physical or whatever.
And you gave the answer in your paper. Believe it or not, you gave the answer in your paper. There's a sentence in your paper which said, California, where California goes, everyone goes. And in that statement, you've also gave the answer to the statement you've just made. One of the reasons maybe why California decided we want to make it hospitable for the others around the country as well is because since wherever we go, the rest of the world go, for those people who would get left behind for now, we'll do the humane thing and take care of them. And then the country will catch up. Don't you think that?
Well, if you left off the second half, I hope everybody didn't go where California goes. And I still stick to it. It's not California's duty to take care of the rest of the country.
But you know what? You know what I see, doctor? I see that if you had to be helpful to somebody to get it done, you would. And unfortunately, we don't have enough people who are willing to mitigate the problems within our laws. I think you would.
And I think private entities and back in the day, private entities really stepped up to the plate. And there was a time when they had a lot of homes for unwed mothers and this type thing. And somehow we've lost that. And I think we need to get back to that. We need to get back to looking at patients as individuals and, you know, not pawns of the state and the government, but, you know.
That's an ideological position. My ideological position is I don't want to depend on private entities. I don't trust private entities because private entities.
See, there we are.
Right. I know. And that's what I'm saying. It's ideological and but that's good. We have a good, fruitful discussion. I think private entities sometimes come with an attachment while we the people come with we the people. But
well, if in fact we were we the people, and that goes back to the herpetarium, because the government has lost its goal of being for the people in many cases.
And I bet you and I, all of us, both on the left and the right, could come together and really make sure that it is we the people, so that it's really we the people getting the people's will and not the corporations and etc. that actually continue to run things.
Which you're right. And unfortunately, I suppose we in this conversation with neither can be trusted.
You know what is interesting? It's when I say the private sector, when the private sector controls government, that's corporations controlling government. That is the private sector again. That's the ultimate guilty entity, because when we the people can control the politicians, we the people, it becomes we the people.
Right.
So even when we have when we have bad government, it is by the purview of the corporations and etc. that does it. But I tell you what, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, it's sad but true. All these folks are bought
well, look
off.
At that.
And I wrote an article a few years back called "Sold to the Highest Bidder." So you can guess what that was about.
My dear conservative friend, you can get your articles at me anytime. I think you're a good person, and I think there is more that we would agree with, absent certain types of ideological stills that we could get by. Thank you so kindly, Dr. Marilyn M. Singleton, for having a very good discussion on the subject. Please keep doing what you do.
Thank you so much. Okay.
We spend a lot of time deconstructing the news, trying to parse it into a form that everybody can understand. We try to find those little nitpicks where it flies above the fray, etc. If you really like these videos that we do, I want to ask a big favor. Please go ahead. Number one, subscribe to our channel. And number two, please join if you can. Thank you so kindly for watching. Keep watching. Please remember to share. We must populate the entire internet with our progressive message, a message that we know is what most Americans say that they want. So help us, please join.